The great and mighty Tarask is nearly dead. What do you do?
Well, attack, of course.
Yeah, I clobber it.
You all pile on blow after blow, and the great monstrosity collapses to the ground with a howl.
Indeed, and that wasn't even challenging.
Yeah, that thing sucked.
Well, I don't know. I took a couple hit points of damage and it kind of stings.
Then there is a rumbling, and the chitinous hide of the beast begins to crack apart.
This is not good.
And then swarming from within emerge hundreds, thousands of baby Tarasks, about the size of house cats.
Oh, they're so cute.
And they begin to converge upon you, wrath gleaming in their eyes.
You all know what just happened, don't you?
Yeah, we did a little too much stabby, a little too fast.
This always happens when we kill the boss too quickly.
Wait, what are you talking about?
The multi-stage boss fight, you buffoon.
Hello folks, welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Lucar, and on this channel I share my nearly 30 years of Game Master experience so that you can run amazing games that your players will love. And today we're talking about how to run a multi-stage boss fight that feels more satisfying to players. Because the thing is, many times multi-stage boss fights can come across as rather lame. Besides running the risk of feeling video gamey, players many times will suspect that the only reason there's a stage 2 is because they killed the boss too quickly and the fight was rather anticlimactic, so the Game Master, you, pulled stage 2 out of your rear on a whim. Here's the thing. The key to running a satisfying multi-stage boss fight is to not break verisimilitude. You want the multiple stages to feel organic and make sense within the context of the adventure or perhaps the entire campaign. So today I'll be presenting a new way to run multi-stage boss fights that I haven't really heard talked about before. This new method involves 6 key elements: time, environment, forces, tactics, mechanics, and role-playing. By the way, if you'd like to get access to my own personal Game Master adventures and notes, the stuff that I create and run for my personal games, you can do so by becoming a DM Lair patron at the link below. You get all the adventures I ran for my D&D Sword Coast Guard campaign, my D&D Hands of Light campaign, my current Pathfinder 2 Thieves Abound campaign, and my current Shadowdark Corbadir campaign. There is a ton of content, and you get access to everything. And it isn't just the mad scribblings of a lunatic that you're going to be hard-pressed to interpret either. When I create adventures for my personal games, they're very well fleshed out and probably only a step or two removed from being able to publish. Time. A multi-stage boss fight needs one critical element to stay thrilling: a ticking clock. Without it, the fight can feel static, but with it, every action feels urgent. This ticking clock could be a ritual the boss is trying to complete, an environment that's growing more dangerous by the round, or the impending arrival of reinforcements that would make the boss practically unbeatable. Let your players know that time is working against them. Track the combat rounds visibly, and make changes in the fight that align with that countdown. This approach not only raises the stakes, but also grounds the fight in realism, making each stage shift feel natural. We'll revisit the concept of time throughout our discussion, but for now, remember this. In a multi-stage boss fight, time is the unsung antagonist, making every round count. Environment. Now let's talk about the battlefield. The terrain shouldn't just be a backdrop. It should actively evolve as the fight progresses. You might have already thought about adding interesting elements like difficult terrain, elevation changes, or hazards, and that's great. But in a multi-stage fight, why not make the environment shift as the stages unfold? Imagine a battlefield where the ground is unstable and constantly shifting. Every round or two, shift where the difficult terrain is, adjust the levels, even move the choke points around. Don't make hazards static. Let them adapt to the flow of combat. This can be as immersive as battling on a volcanic floor, where the ground first starts to tremble, then fills with choking smoke, followed by bubbling magma, and finally eruptions that scatter fiery death death across the area. These changes give players a sense of urgency. They'll quickly realize that this place is only becoming more dangerous. Link these environmental shifts to the ticking clock, making them feel natural and inevitable. Also, introduce layer actions like environmental hazards in Pathfinder or D&D's classic layer actions, and make these evolve with each stage of the battle. The hazards should reflect the escalating stakes of the encounter. And don't forget to add objects on the battlefield that the boss can use to adapt their strategy. If the boss is melee focused, let them grab a glaive for reach or javelins for range attacks when their back's against the wall. In an alchemist lab, there might be bombs or alchemist fire lying around, and both the boss and the players could use those for some chaotic fun. Remember, the environment is a living part of the encounter, shifting alongside the boss's phases to keep players engaged and the stakes high. Forces. When creating a multi-stage boss fight, don't let the boss die alone. A single creature facing off against a whole party often gets overwhelmed quickly, which can drain the tension right out of the encounter. That's where minions come in. In the first stage, perhaps you make the players fight their way through waves of minions to reach the boss. Maybe the boss only taunts or toys with them from a distance, using weaker attacks or buffs to keep the minions in the fight. This isn't their real power, they're just testing the party's strength. Once those initial minions are gone, don't leave the boss entirely exposed. Have reinforcements arrive periodically to keep the players on their toes and keep the rhythm of the battle tense. Set up a predictable but intimidating pace. Maybe 2 earth elementals enter every few rounds. Now the players have a choice. Deal with the boss quickly or risk getting overwhelmed by reinforcements. As players start dealing damage directly to the boss, let them realize that even bigger reinforcements might be on the way if they don't wrap things up fast. This introduces a critical layer of tension as they watch the clock, knowing that failing to take down the boss quickly could lead to a fatal flood of enemies. Adding minions and reinforcements turns what could be a straightforward fight into a multi-layered challenge. With the clock ticking, every moment is a choice between focusing on the boss or dealing with the forces around them. By the way, if you're finding this information useful, please give me a thumbs up and share this video with a fellow game master. And why don't you leave me a comment? Just let me know that I don't completely suck. Tactics and mechanics. A great multi-stage boss fight is all about combining evolving tactics with meaningful mechanics. These are technically 2 separate elements, but they're tightly coupled, so we're going to be addressing them together. Now, in each stage, the boss should shift both their tactics and mechanical abilities, creating a dynamic, layered encounter. Here's how that could look across 4 stages. In stage 1, the boss starts cautiously, relying on minions as we mentioned to protect them. Here the boss isn't focused on directly attacking the players, but instead on supporting the minions through buffs or minor disruptions. The players have to fight through these minions to get a chance at the boss, building anticipation. Stage 2 is the overconfident stage. The boss finally steps in, and with a few abilities, but doesn't bring out their best moves. They're still sizing up the party, perhaps trying out weaker attacks or relying on environmental effects to weaken the players without expending too much energy. At this point, the boss feels untouchable, confident that they can handle whatever the players throw at them. In stage 3, the tone shifts as the boss realizes the fight is more challenging than expected. This is the anger stage. They adapt to counter the player's biggest threats, deploying heavier hitting abilities and becoming more mobile to dodge melee attacks or avoid dangerous spells. They might teleport or move swiftly around the battlefield to keep the players off balance. This sudden aggression and change in tactics can catch the players off guard, reminding them that the fight is far from over. If the players had a false sense of security, now is the time to rip that away from them. Finally, in stage 4, desperation and fear set in. The boss pulls out all the stops, using anything in their arsenal, including abilities or attacks they've been saving for a last-ditch effort. They may start taking cover, hiding, or using the environment to their advantage. They might even bargain or attempt to deceive the players to buy themselves time. Picture a red dragon whose blood ignites when wounded, dealing fire damage to anyone nearby. These high-stakes changes make the final moments of the fight feel intense and unpredictable. predictable. By evolving both tactics and mechanics across these stages, you create a boss fight that feels reactive, intelligent, and alive. Each stage presents a new challenge, keeping players on their toes and making the encounter feel like a true battle of wits and skill. Role-playing. To bring a multi-stage boss fight to life, role-playing is key. Each stage of the battle isn't just a shift in tactics, it's an emotional journey for the boss as well. Reflect their evolving feelings, confidence, anger, and eventually desperation and fear as they react to the player's progress. In the early stages, show the boss's confidence, maybe even some arrogance. They might taunt the players, dismissing their attacks or mocking their efforts. This overconfidence adds a layer of personality, making it clear that the boss sees this as an easy fight. As the fight progresses and the boss starts to feel the threat, let anger seep into their responses. Their tone changes, frustration builds, and they might even lash out verbally, hinting at their growing fear of defeat. Show this frustration physically too, an intense glare, tightening of their stance, or even reckless attacks that demonstrate their desperation. By the final stage, fear takes over. The boss may start to bargain, making desperate promises or attempting deceit to gain a momentary reprieve. Even their movements reflect fear. They hesitate, take cover, or make risky moves to avoid the player's attacks. This emotional progression makes the boss feel alive and reactive. Show the confidence, show the anger, and finally, show the fear. This role-playing brings depth and believability to the encounter, making the boss more than just a mechanical challenge. They're a real, flawed opponent fighting for their life. Important tips. To make a multi-stage boss fight really shine, here are some key tips to keep in mind. First, tie the stages of the fight not just to the ticking clock, but also to the boss's condition. Transition stages based on their hit points. Maybe at 60%, the boss moves from confidence to anger, and by 25%, they're showing real fear. This health-based progression makes the boss's reactions feel grounded and gives players a sense of progression as they wear down their opponent. Second, prepare ahead of time. Know the boss's tactics and powers for each stage, and have a clear sense of how the terrain will shift and evolve as the battle goes on. This way, you're ready to take full advantage of the environment and keep the fight fluid and immersive. Third, foreshadow abilities and stage changes. If the boss has a short-range teleport, for example, consider using it once in the early stages. This not only prepares the players for what's to come, but also makes the later stages feel like a natural evolution rather than a surprise. It builds trust with the players, making the fight feel consistent and believable. Finally, if possible, tailor the stages so that each character type has a moment to shine. In stage 1, melee combatants might dominate as they wade through minions. Stage 2 could give spellcasters and ranged fighters a chance to excel as they face the boss from a distance. In stage 3, support characters could be essential, keeping everyone up and countering new defenses. This balanced design lets each player contribute and feel special, making the fight rewarding for everyone. Anyway, that's what I think about multi-stage boss fights. What do you think? Did I miss something? Now, if you'd like to learn more about playing solo D&D, that's D&D all by yourself, check out this video right here. And until next time, happy game mastering.